Commission's proposals would require state law changes. Do you agree with that analysis?
Yes.
Okay. Are there any, could we enact any of these recommendations locally rather than needing state? Is there anything that the city can do without the state?
No, all the elements of the tax system that are so problematic and everything else about it are in the real property tax law, and so there's nothing that we can change locally.
This is somewhat correct and somewhat incorrect, and our friend councilperson Brannan asked two different questions, saying, is there anything we can do we, the council, can do to meet the proposal or to enact the proposal? And then he said, is there anything we can do? Well, those are two different questions, right? And the finance commissioner is well aware that the assessment ratio for Class 1 property is completely under the finance and maybe the city council's control. The Twitter account for the Department of Finance even said, based on a determination, the assessment ratio for Class 1 property has changed a few times in the past. It's all on the S7000A Wikipedia page, the history of it, and so that has changed. And if it's very clear, and if you ask the question to the commissioner, he would have to answer correctly that if the assessment ratio for Class 1 property was reduced down to the levels that Park Slope properties are at, then everything would have to be equal, right? The other one, the properties in Bay Ridge and Staten Island would have to have their assessment ratio reduced, because now they're near 6%, and they would have to go down to the, whatever it is, 0.1%, 1%, whatever the Park Slope minimum is. And this would change so that all the properties would pay at the same rate. It would be effectively the same thing that the commission proposed, but it would not take into account the co-ops and condos, and so it is correct to say that state law would have to change if we want to make a holistic change. But if we just want to focus on Class 1 property, the existing Class 1 property in the current system, then the Department of Finance has control over that, and they can lower the assessment ratio so that, and I believe it'll cause a lot of commotion, I know that, and it would also require that the city council raise the property tax rate so that this revenue neutral, which I completely disagree with. We should be lowering property tax for everyone, and we should stop wasting money the way New York City seems to bleed money all over the place. It is the most ludicrous system where you tax people and then you send a check back to them, right? That is saying, oops, we taxed you too much. That's embarrassing. So that's what New York City is doing, people. If you're in the STAR system, you get extra checks from, I'm sure the people might not even be aware, the people that are paying rent, the renters, the people that are not in the STAR system. It's called STAR rebates. There's a special list of people that are on the STAR rebates, and what happens is Eric Adams also did it, sends checks for $100, $100. Bloomberg did it twice, sending $400 and $400. These are billions and billions of dollars that are being sent back. So it is, I think, not a clear question, and I'm shocked that Mr. Brannan doesn't ask direct questions. He just asks these vague questions. Also, I think there's fundamental misunderstanding by Mr. Brannan about why we're in this situation. It has to do with 1981 and what your market value was back then and the effect of exponential growth, right? So if your market value was higher, Park Slope in 1981 had very low market values. And that's how it started. And we can all go back to John Precita, who's attended these meetings and from Queens, and he was involved in S7000A, and I agree with him that it is a good law. And if we're going to jack up prices or taxes on people here in Brooklyn, just because they live in Brooklyn, some of them will go from $900 to $9,000, right? And no circuit breaker is going to be able to help them. They're used to paying $900, right? The circuit breaker may help them a little bit. Or I think it's an unfair system, but the fair system would be to lower spending. Spending, and this is what John Precita said. He said it very clearly that we have a spending problem. And the tax problem is a result of the spending problem. Why do we always talk about raising taxes? We have to cut the waste in New York City government. That is the number one problem. How in the world do we have people with infinite health care? They don't even work. They come into the city offices and they sit at the desk, they read the newspaper, and then they go home, and they have city cars. We're paying for them to commute back and forth to work in city cars. What is going on? They have special placards, I see it all over the place. We have special parking for it. It's almost as if there's two different classes of people. There's the people that pay for everything and the people that take advantage of the system, right? And I don't think it should be like that. It should be we're all in this city together. If we do the numbers, de Blasio hired so many people. I think the city workforce, which is all public information, if people want to see salaries, just search in Google for New York City salaries, and you'll find them. They're all in there, even search by name. It has the history of everyone's paycheck in New York City and outside too. A lot of the New York City has employees, and then there's district managers and district offices and there's so many, and some of them are quasi-city employees. I guess they are also considered city employees. But this system is filled with waste. Look at the situation with the teachers. The teachers have infinite health care, infinite tenure. They don't even contribute to their health care, right? Who in the private sector gets insurance like that? Literally, the insurance for the private sector has been disappearing. We practically have to pay for the medical care and the insurance. So any bill, there's deductible, this deductible, that deductible. And so you end up paying full price for medical care and you pay insurance. So now you're paying two people, right? And we don't get the benefits. We don't have the ability to have union grievances and right in the private sector, right? So what in the world is going on that we have a crazy system where everything has to be revenue neutral, and it's not even clear what revenue neutral means because the budget is growing at 6%. So revenue neutral means the same revenue as the previous year, or does it revenue neutral mean 6% growth every year? Nobody's getting 6% growth. Now inflation is finally back, so now people are getting hurt even worse. Their pay stays level, inflation goes up, so costs go up, and their property tax goes up by 6%. Why don't you all look at the spending? Maybe cut staff, cut the city council, cut these incompetent people, take pay cuts, right? That would be the right thing to do. The city council recently voted their own pay increases, which is astronomically bad for the taxpayer. And let the taxpayer vote on that, right? Make that a referendum. It shouldn't be voted by the city council. I mean, I've never seen anything like that. Of course, every person who's working would vote for their own tax increase, their salary increase. This is just crazy world we live in. So wake up, Brannan.